In the heart of Manhattan, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and limousines lined the avenues, 12-year-old Sophia Carter lived in a world of silence. She was the only daughter of Richard Carter, a powerful CEO whose name carried weight in every boardroom across the country. Despite her privileged life, Sophia carried a burden no amount of money could erase. She had not spoken a single word at school in almost 3 years. Doctors called it selective mutism, a psychological condition brought on by anxiety. But for Richard, a man who thrived on control, it was a wound to his pride. He wanted his daughter to be strong, commanding, just like him. Instead, she sat at the back of the classroom, silent, withdrawn, and invisible. At Riverside Academy, a private school for the elite, teachers had tried everything. Expensive therapists, speech specialists, motivational speakers, even rewards and bribes. But nothing worked. Sophia remained silent. Her classmates whispered, calling her the ghost girl. That was when Michael Grant entered the picture. Michael was a struggling young teacher in his early 30s, barely making ends meet. And like his colleagues, he didn't come from wealth or prestige. He drove a rusted Ford, rented a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Queens, and often worked nights at a local bookstore to pay off his student loans. He had nearly given up on teaching when the principal offered him a chance: take over Sophia Carter's class. If he could succeed where others had failed, his job would be secure. If not, he'd likely be dismissed. Michael walked into the classroom on his first day with a mixture of fear and determination. He noticed Sophia immediately, sitting quietly by the window, clutching her notebook like a shield. Her long dark hair framed her pale face, and her blue eyes held a sadness that pierced him. Unlike other teachers who bombarded her with questions, Michael didn't call on her. He didn't try to force her voice out. Instead, he started telling stories. Every morning, before lessons began, he would stand at the front of the class and share a piece of his own life about his father, a factory worker who used to play the guitar on their porch, about his mother, who worked double shifts but always found time to laugh, about his own struggles with failure and doubt. The students leaned in. Even Sophia lifted her eyes from her desk, listening. For the first time in years, her classmates stopped teasing her and started sitting in silence, absorbed by Michael's words. One day, Michael brought an old, battered guitar to class. "My father used to play this," he said. "He told me music was just another way of speaking when words get stuck." He strummed a few chords and began to sing softly. The room fell still. Sophia's eyes widened. That afternoon, while the other kids rushed out for recess, Sophia stayed behind. She walked hesitantly to the guitar, resting against the chair. Michael pretended not to notice, grading papers as she gently touched the strings. A faint sound echoed, shaky but real. When she looked up, Michael gave her a small nod, as if to say, "It's okay, you don't have to speak." Not yet. Weeks passed, and something remarkable began to happen. Sophia started writing notes to Michael. Tiny scraps of paper slipped onto his desk. At first they were simple. "Thank you. I like the song. The kids don't laugh at me when you tell stories," Michael always wrote back. Slowly, her walls began to crack. But Richard Carter was not impressed. When he heard that Sophia still hadn't spoken, he stormed into the school, demanding results. "You're wasting her time," he snapped at Michael. "Do you know how many specialists I've hired? You're just a small-time teacher with a guitar." Michael, nervous but steady, replied, "Sir, your daughter doesn't need more pressure. She needs someone who believes in her voice, even before she finds it." Richard scoffed and left. A week later, the school held its annual talent showcase, an event where students performed in front of hundreds of parents, alumni, and donors. Sophia, as always, wasn't signed up. But Michael had a plan. He gently asked her to join him on stage, not to speak, not even to sing, but just to strum the guitar with him. At first she shook her head. Her hands trembled, but something in Michael's calm eyes gave her courage. She agreed. The night of the showcase, the auditorium was filled with wealthy families in designer suits and dresses. Richard Carter sat in the front row, his expression sharp, almost impatient. When Sophia stepped onto the stage with Michael, whispers spread through the crowd. Michael began playing a soft melody. Sophia's fingers hovered over the strings, frozen. Then slowly she strummed, one note then another. The sound was shaky, but it was hers. The audience grew quiet, sensing the weight of the moment. And then, as the melody built, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in 3 years, Sophia leaned toward the microphone and whispered a line of the song. Her voice was fragile, like a bird testing its wings, but it was there. The auditorium gasped. Tears filled Richard's eyes. The man who commanded boardrooms, who never showed weakness, now sat trembling as his daughter's voice filled the hall. The audience erupted into applause, many standing, clapping and crying at once. Sophia smiled, a real smile, her first in years. After the performance, Richard walked backstage. For a moment he couldn't speak. He just embraced his daughter tightly, whispering, "I've missed your voice, sweetheart." Turning to Michael, his eyes still wet, he said quietly, "You did what money never could." "Thank you," Michael only smiled. "She did it herself. She just needed someone to believe." From that day on, Sophia's silence slowly dissolved. She didn't become the loudest in the room, but she no longer hid in the shadows. And Richard Carter, the powerful CEO, learned that the greatest victories aren't won in boardrooms, but in the fragile hearts of the ones we love.